Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Guillaume. I'm the product manager in charge of the Y2 product set, which includes the back office, the front office, as well as everything that we refer to as openness and extensibility. So that includes our APIs, business notifications, for instance. And I'm very happy today to be given the opportunity to introduce Cegid Retail Y2 edition 2021 and to give you an overview of the major new features brought by this new version of our solution. So why now? It's because edition 2021 was made what we call ready to market earlier this week, and as you all know, there's a process, an internal validation process for each new release at Cegid. So this version actually was finalized last year. Went through a whole set of tests managed and supervised by our QA team before it was made what we call RC, release candidate, in February earlier this year, and then went through a pilot phase. So we're quite happy and proud to announce that we now have several pilot customers that are live on this edition 2021, and their feedback is extremely positive. So there was nothing stopping us from making this version now ready to market, which is our own term for general available, meaning that your SaaS solutions will soon be upgraded to this new release. Important to understand that this is not a training on this new release. More information, more details are already available in the release note document that's made available on the online documentation portal a couple of months ago. So please refer to this document. If you need more information, you can, of course, as well contact your customer success managers, your different interlocutors at Cegid if you want to have more information. So when we talk and when we refer to Y2, we tend to refer to the back office of Y2. What's interesting and important to understand is that Y2 really is the engine that powers the entire Y2 solution set. So of course, the front office that most of you are using as a fixed point of sale solution, but as well as live store, MPOS, inventory tracking. It's also Y2 that's going to feed the retail intelligence, Cegid retail intelligence solutions, or your own BI solutions with data that is required for you to understand and analyze your business and make the right decisions. And more, we tend to integrate with third-party application because Y2, even if it's an important, is only a piece of your application landscape, and we integrate more and more with ERP systems, e-commerce platforms, CRM solutions, and so on and so on. So let's focus and let's talk about edition 2021. I was mentioning this earlier. So everything related to API business notification represents a lot of the investment that is made on the solution. Security and authentication as well. So I was talking about ransomware and different stories that we have heard about in the past couple of years. So we keep investing in making sure that our solution and our platforms, the partners we work with, are all providing the best level of security altogether. UX and UI, so I was referring to this earlier. I'll give you a little bit more information in a couple of minutes. Compliance, so we're going to mostly talk about taxation of send sales, or the OSS, or one-stop shop regulation, as well as non-systematic distribution and printing of sales receipts in the front office, and some other functional enhancements. I was mentioning omnichannel, data exchange, and so on. The main addition and the main reason behind us hosting this webinar today is the arrival of web apps, or not the arrival, but the mandatory use of certain web apps in edition 2021. And we're going to talk about the identity web app, which is related to user group and user management, as well as company settings, which is focusing on the management of company settings. A first part on API and business notifications. So I think it's right to say that the first web services for Y2 were developed or made available about 10 years ago. And since then, we have, of course, updated most of them. I wanted to show you that we keep updating even the older web services, even though our strategy is not to make evolutions on the uh, oldest web services, but to rather redevelop or provide new, more modern, RESTful web services. But there's a lot of web services that have been updated over the past few months. And there's also quite a lot of new web services. I just gave you a few examples here to explain that the arrival or the enhancements that are brought to some of our applications. I'm going to talk about inventory tracking here in the first place. So inventory tracking is our store back office mobile solution. Okay, and that's only relying on web services to interact with Y2 and to be able to manage physical inventories, manual stock adjustment, to be able to receive or transfer stocks using these mobile apps. We needed new APIs. Those APIs were made public, and therefore they're available for you to use to do whatever you want to do with them. The second thing I wanted to focus on is the our webhooks or business notifications, as we call them. We have decided to extend the scope of business notification to almost all the transactions in Y2. So I'm not going to list them all, but whenever a customer reservation request is created, whenever a customer reservation is created, whenever a supplier receipt is created or a transfer is being created and so on, Y2 is now able to trigger a business notification that will be available for that endpoint solution that has subscribed to its notification service. I'm now going to tell you about the different enhancements that have been brought to edition 2021 versus edition 2020. So as you remember, last year's version 2020 introduced what we call the Cegid design system for Y2, and we try to bring some improvement to this year's release based mostly on your feedback. So I'm going to list some of the enhancements that have been made available. The first one, and you may already be aware of some of them, because even though they were developed for edition 2021, some of those enhancements have been made available to edition 2020. So as SaaS customers, you should have received some of those. So anyway, just to name a few, the ability now to pin the left-hand menu and make sure it's not going to disappear every time you click on the list and so on. The able to activate what we call the high contrast mode to better view your screen and the different options. That's a standard function. We now highlight the active cell in document because we understand that the colors were pretty light and it was sometimes difficult for people to locate their mouse cursor on the screen. The return of arrows in scroll bar is quite useful. The ability, and it's optional for you, to display column lines in documents except for the sales receipt screen on the front office. And for me, the most interesting one, you're now able again to display the domain, database, store, register, and URL information when you're connected to Y2. So this will be mostly interesting for people doing a lot of tests on the front office application, because we know that it's quite common to switch from one environment to another, like prod to test to training and so on, from one register to another one, and not being able to check that information while we're working was for me an important regression. So we brought this back. As well, it's been requested by some of you to be able to force change the login date when entering the application. Another thing here, it's more a request from our customer care service, because they receive quite a lot of requests, or a lot of people have reported that they were a bit disappointed that it was no longer possible to display or use alternating row colors in the front office. Just wanted to reassure you, it was never gone. This is just something that can be enabled using configuration. And just also, that's the occasion for me to tell you that on the online documentation portal, there's a lot of what we call how-to documents. There's over 350 of them. And sometimes it's just very easy tips that are going to help you with the standard features of Y2. A couple of things about compliance. The first one is related to tax compliance and what we refer to as taxation of distant sales, or the one-stop shop. So that's an EU law that basically states that if you sell products in a European state and deliver those products to another EU state, uh, the tax collected on the transaction should be the one of the country where the countries will be delivered. So if I was to take a simple example, let's say your customer calling a store or visiting a store in France, but ask for the transaction or the products you are paying for to be shipped to your home in Germany. The front office or the sales receipt that will be created in France should calculate the German tax and not the French one. Okay, so in order to address this requirement, we've brought a new function under the tax management menu, which is called delivery taxation, and that makes it possible for you to configure all this, knowing that this is available and enabled for what we call send sales, and also for you if using the delivery and pickup menu. Another thing that really concerns was about to concern France, because the law in France says that from the 1st of January next year, it will no longer possible for retailers to systematically print or distribute receipts or give vouchers and so on. So of course, customers will still be able to ask for a physical receipt if they need one, but this should not be done automatically by the system. So I'm talking about this today, even though I'm not expecting to have many French people on this English session, but we understand that many of you are also very interested in not wasting paper. So there's a new feature now that makes it possible that you can enable just to have this question at the end of the transaction and basically initiate a dialogue with your staff and say, well, do you want to print a sales receipt or not? If you say no, you can complete the transaction. Knowing that while we were doing this, we decided to bring or give you the ability directly from the front office pad to reprint that something that was already available, but also to send or resend the last transaction by email. So, a few enhancements on the omni-channel part I said before. The first one is about the optimized loading of the e-reservation request screen in the front office. We've had feedback and we've witnessed ourselves that if you had a lot of e-reservation requests on the front office and you had set up the solution so that at the end of each transaction you wanted to display that screen to your staff, well, that the loading, if you had a lot of e-reservation requests, could take a long time. So what we did is we've added basically date fields for you to create default filters and say, well, for instance, if when I open or when I load the screen, I want by default to only display e-reservations requests received today or today and yesterday or for the past few days, and so on. Of course, making it possible for your staff to edit or change that date range to display more information. Another enhancement is mostly about ship from store orders. So when you take an order, it was possible to display the available stock or check what was available and where, but we were only able to display stock on hand. So now make it possible to display not just stock on hand, but as well as available stock. And as a reminder, you can yourself set up or configure what we're going to call available stock. It could be, for instance, your stock on hand minus stock reserved by customers, plus stock in transit, and so on. So that's now available. As well as the ability, when you place an order, to display the global available stock, or global omni-channel available stock. So when you place an order, this particular item may not be available in my store. I may not need to know exactly where it's available or which store I'm going to allocate that order to, but I just want to make sure that if I take this order, the brand will be able to fulfill it, and I know here that the product is available. Another one, because more and more of you are now so subcontracting or letting or trusting their stores with online order fulfillment. Okay, not just the distribution center or e-commerce warehouse, but the stores are now an important part of the order fulfillment. So we've added, even though that information was accessible through the order tracking function, we've now added a dedicated function to help you track your store deliveries. So just in going this, on this screen, you see all the ship from store orders, the number of products that have been ordered, the remaining quantity or the quantity left to ship, and the status, just to monitor the performance on all the stores and see how they're tracking. In addition, again, I'll let you check the release note. We've added the ability not to reallocate an order to a different store. So for example, that store that received an e-reservation request will not be able to fulfill that order. So it's possible to reallocate it to another store, as well as to update or modify the shipping address of an order. A quick reminder about the online documentation portal that has been available for a couple of months now. Just a reminder, so it's a standard URL. It's available in French and in English. It has an embedded search engine. You will find there all the up-to-date follow-up notes, release notes, technical prerequisites, API documentation, over, as I said, 350 how-to documents, and the content is being updated every week. So it's always up to date. And so far, feedback we've had is good. We're quite happy with this. And we're so happy that we've decided to add a shortcut to both our back and front office applications. So there's now this new question mark icon. When you click on it, it's going to open your browser and open the online documentation portal. But as we know that some of you have also spent a lot of time and done a fantastic job in creating bespoke training material, we make it possible for you to edit or to add your own URL. And therefore, when your staff is going to click on this, it's going to redirect them to your own training material. And finally, the last thing, and I would say most important thing I wanted to tell you about today, and it's actually a good thing. Okay, we think it's important to give you a heads up on this one. So those of you might remember, those of you might have used it as well. But since edition 2020, there are actually three functions that were made available through web apps. The first one is company settings management, and the other two are user group management and user management. But while those web apps were available, you were still able to use the standard and legacy function to manage those functions. In edition 2021, our historical legacy functions will no longer be available. And when you go to administration, company settings, or administration, user group, administration, users, you will be automatically redirected to those web apps. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just give you a very quick demonstration on my back office. So as I said, historically used to go there, go to administration, go to company settings, and the company settings management screen will open in Y2. Now, when I click this, it's actually going to open my browser and launch automatically the company settings web app. Okay, so the way the information is displayed, the way it's organized is exactly the same thing or the same way it used to be in the in Y2. So everything related to accounting, commercial management, everything you had here, for instance, one things related to front office. So the functions are the same, okay, and you will be able to enable, disable features and so on. What this web app is bringing that was lacking, in my opinion, in the legacy features, the ability for you to look for all settings related to one particular item. I'm going to talk, I was talking about item. If I type here item in that Google-like search field, it's going to show you all the settings related to item management. If I was to look for something related to loyalty, it's going to show you everything that's related to loyalty. You can then save or not the different modifications. All right. The web apps are available in all the languages that Y2 is available. I don't know if you noticed, but when I switched from Y2 to the web app, I didn't have to log in anymore. Why? Because I accessed this web app through the Y2 dedicated function, and I already had to enter my login password when I entered Y2. Now, if I was to try and access this same web app because I know the URL, then I would need to enter my my credentials again. When it comes to user group and users, it's actually the same thing. So you can access the same features through the same menus you've been using in Y2. User groups is going to open the identity web app and have the user group functions open automatically. And the users one is actually going to open the exact same web app, but with you being directly on the user function. You can navigate from one to the other by just going to the side menu, going to users or user groups, or even accessing the dashboard to have here information about how many users, how many user groups are in your system. Web apps are going to make it possible for you as well to search for information. So I'll be able to look for information using several information. I don't know, let's say my user code if I know it, my store code if I know it, and I will be able as well here to change or select which column I would like to display here. Let's say, for instance, that I'd like to have the login. Add it here and move it up somewhere here. Okay, just to have here the login displayed. I can, of course, access the detail of a user profile, get access to almost the same information. So general login, cultural profile, default warehouse, default sales division, access to the different restrictions, the same way we used to in the other things, access to measurement of classifications, user fields, and so on. You will also be able, if that's something you're looking at doing, in selecting several users like this, to perform batch updates. Same thing, because you would like now all those users to switch to the French cultural profile. So what's important is that there's absolutely nothing for you to do to be able to use those web apps when your environment is upgraded to edition 2021. It's actually the authentication component that's going to detect all the information, and that will display the right web app for you. So you don't need to know that URL. It will be set up automatically by our team when they upgrade your environment. So that's about everything I had to share with you today. Um, Thanks a lot for taking the time, for your attention. But remember that the release note is also available. There is a lot of really insightful information on the online documentation portal, and that the whole Cegid team, starting with your customer success managers, are available to answer your questions. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day, and I'll speak to you soon, hopefully. Bye bye.